Hey, good morning. Right, I am back on the lives. I wanted to talk today about injuries. Yesterday I posted a podcast talking all about injuries and maybe what we're doing wrong in relation to them that's making them not go away. And I just want to expand it a bit more in a video. And of course, you can listen to the podcast. It's there live. The link is in the description. So if you copy and paste that in Spotify, or if you go into my bio, you'll find the podcast talking about it a bit as well. So basically, I want to talk about injuries because obviously, as horse riders, we are prone to it. Um, it's a wonder we don't get more. But a lot of the time, people think injuries are the likes of, say, a broken bone or a dislocation or a torn muscle or something like that. Something that's really, really visible and like obviously stops you doing something, like because you dislocate your shoulder, you can't ride, or if you break your leg, obviously you can't ride, and that's not always the case. So like this could even be pain and stuff related to an old injury that we don't even think about. So maybe you dislocated your shoulder years ago, you've rehabbed, it's all back to normal, but you get this niggly pain in it. Like it happens maybe when the weather changes or if it's raining or and like it doesn't necessarily stop you from riding, but it just makes it really hard. And these are the things that like they're like recovered injuries, but they're always a bit of a pain. And this could be just because after the injury healed, we never did any program to build it back up again, or we may have done it, but as soon as it felt good again, we stopped. And this is what happens. So basically, if you injure an area, it becomes weaker in a sense that in order to reduce pain and reduce inflammation, your body will turn off the nerve receptors to the area. And when it's healed, it doesn't just turn them back on. That's where it becomes a problem. So this is why they're weaker to do things, and it hurts more to do things because those nerve receptors aren't back on, and we need to get them back and firing again. Otherwise, you're gonna have this niggly, you're gonna have this weakness, you're gonna have that, oh, it's my dodgy knee, elbow, whatever. And a lot of the time with joints as well, it may not necessarily be the issue is in the joint, or if it is the issue in the joint, maybe you hurt a tendon in the joint. One of the best ways to support it is by building the muscle around it. And I'm not talking about having a big like Arnold Schwarzenegger physique. I'm talking about having a nice stable base around it. And this can be done very easily. This can be done with home exercises, bands, and even bodyweight stuff. It's not a case of you have to have a gym program for 2 hours. And we neglect these things because they're just not bad enough to cause an issue or to cause let's do something about it. So like obviously if your leg's hanging off, you're gonna have to go to the doctor. But if it hurts a little bit when you're getting into the saddle, or you're a little bit stiff in the morning, you're probably not going to do anything about it. And the problem with this is that over time it'll make it degenerate more and more and more till it comes to a point where maybe you have to end up going and getting surgery to fix it, or um, your range of movement is really, really restricted, so you mightn't be able to lift your shoulder anymore, which makes putting a saddle on a horse very difficult. And that's why we want to get these early before this becomes a problem. So if you catch, say for instance now, if I told you, right, you have to do this for 6 weeks, you'd be like, oh, pain and hope. If I ignore it, I don't have to do it. And um, like you might be afraid that you go to the physio, and they'd be like, don't get on the horse. And a lot of the time you can still get on the horse. Like I've had multiple injuries where I've not been told I couldn't horse ride. I could still run, I could still do a lot of things, just one or two exercises I wasn't allowed to do. So first off, get that out of your mind. Physios generally don't tell you not to do stuff. Also, don't go to the doctor because you'll only get pain medication, which again won't sort the issue. And it's nothing against the doctor, it's just not their field. And the thing is, if you do that now, right, you've got 6 weeks of work. Ugh, pain in the hole, kind of boring. Except if you ignore it for several more months, you're now running the risk of being in pain and having the issue worsen over the next 4, 5, 6 months, years. Now you're in a position where you completely either cannot do anything and have to resort to something like saying getting surgery to fix it, which then is going to take minimum 6 weeks to recover from. As in, like, they'll tell you 6 weeks, it won't be 6 weeks, it'll be 6 weeks to heal. Then you have your recovery time of like rehab to build it back up, which will be prescribed to you by the hospital. Or you end up with an injury that maybe not that bad, but it's going to take a lot longer than 6 weeks to recover. So this is why we need to catch these issues before it becomes a bigger problem. And like, I'm not saying I'm immune to this. I've done this on numerous occasions, and this has resulted in me having to rein back my training for a long time, or not being able to do things because I ignored it to the point where I couldn't put any pressure on my shoulder, or I literally, like, I was in pain all the time. Like, I was waking up with a pain in the back of my shoulder. It's a different injury I did. Like, anything like that, these are signs. If you're waking up in pain, if you're waking up with stiffness, like, these are signs that something needs to be looked after. Your body's telling you something. And we're so happy to ignore that because we're afraid. Let's be honest, we're afraid what will happen. And really, at the end of the day, like, is it worth staying in pain all the time for? Because in my opinion, no. And I've gotten better at this. If something flares up, I go straight away as soon as I can and go to my physio and find out what needs to be done. Now, maybe not straight away, a couple of weeks, because like, if anything's hanging around for a couple of weeks, it's a sign we want to do it. Okay, we want to do something about it. And I know you probably don't want to hear that because you like ignoring it, and it's nicer to ignore it and it's easier to ignore it, but this is your call now. Like, because at the end of the day, like, is it not worth it? Is it not going to be better for you in the long run? Like, do you enjoy being in pain? Do you enjoy taking painkillers? Do you enjoy just waking up in pain? I can't imagine you do. And just because you're used to it doesn't mean it's normal. So this is why I'm thinking, like, why are we putting ourselves through this for so long when, like, sometimes it could be such an easy fix? And when I say easy fix, like, I'm talking about, like, going to see a physio for an hour, getting a plan, maybe seeing them a couple of times. Yes, I can understand it's expensive, but it's just as expensive to go to the doctor and pay for prescription painkillers. Like, and then you're going to go back to the doctor for another prescription of painkillers because why? They didn't work because they just masked the issue. So just a little bit of food for thought. I do talk about that in the podcast as well, kind of talk about different things. It's just kind of a similar vein. If it is something that you struggle with, remember, this is what I do as well. I help rehab injuries. I help work with pain management. I've done it all myself because I've landed every which way off the horse. So I understand nearly every impact that can happen. So you're not alone. I have the experience in it. And I want to bring that to help you guys because I've done all this myself, and I've stayed in pain, and I've talked to clients. I'm like, just do something about it. Stop making excuses. You know, it's the best thing you're gonna do. Like, you will never regret getting something like this sorted. The only time you regret it is if you leave it too long and it becomes a bigger, wider issue. So if you are interested in finding out more about maybe rehabbing an old injury or working back and seeing if we can figure out what's causing some pain, do give me a message, drop me a DM. I'm here to help you, and thank you for listening.